Now, let's tackle about the Restoration from 18th century, from 1600s to 1800s. So, this is the time it's exhausted from war, because before the Restoration, people way back, they are aiming for position, they are aiming for power, for throne. So, this period focuses on philosophy, art, and literature. So, the Bloodless Revolution. King James first started this Bloodless Revolution when he says that he did not need the parliament to rule. So, but when Charles I succeeded James I, he ruled his kingdom alone, and he doesn't need also the parliament. So one fine moment when Charles I decided to be needing the parliament, so he forced the parliament, but with the benefit or with the grants that the parliament will be exceeded for 20 years. So because of that, the parliament exceeded, so the parliament decided to control the king and even punishes the officers and the workers who worked for Charles I. So when civil war started, the parliament defeated Charles I. And unsuccessfully, parliament did not rule, or the parliament did not successfully rule England. So he called William of Orange with his wife Mary and Charles I's daughter. So with this, William of Orange ruled England, but with limited power from the parliament. So this was called the constitutional monarchy. So in this case, this revolution has taken place without violence. So this is why it's called the Glorious or the Bloodless Revolution. So in 1642, Puritans made a ban and repealed by King Charles. So King Charles was a Protestant and he has a strong Catholic faith ever since he was a child. So when Puritans arrived in England, they help observe that England has a strong Catholic faith into the church. So Puritans want a church reform that King Charles doesn't like. So he wants the Puritans to be banned. So because of religious persecution, Puritans decided to leave and migrate to other country. And in this time, people in England are addicted in theater. So they are mesmerized in theater plays, and the play is for all and not just for the upper class but also for ordinary people. So everyone watches a theater play together. So Alexander Pope from 1688 to 1744. Do you know that Pope suffered from spinal tuberculosis during his time, and all his life he lived with a hunchback. Pope never had any chance to get married. There was a time when he revealed his feeling to his closest friend. He was being rejected by the girl. So Pope was a classical writer. So he published an exposition of the rules of the classical school in the form of an essay essay of criticism. So Pope was never a renowned person during his time because of his physical deformity. And his one piece, there is a piece he made, The Wraith of the Lock. So this piece is written by Alexander Pope and first published during 1712 and reworked and published again during 1714. So this poem, the lead character of this was Belinda, whose lack of hair was cut off by the Baron during the social gathering. So Belinda is outraged that her lack of hair was being cut by the Baron. So in the Rape of the Lock, Pope uses Belinda and the Baron to mock off his acquaintances, because the story behind this poem was Pope wrote The Rape of the Lock because of a friend's request. His friend was named John Caryll. He was a prominent Roman Catholic on that time. Caryll explained that his friend Lord Peter had cut off the hair of Arabella Fermor. So ever since the incident happened, the two families feud. Even if two families were a great friend before, because of that incident that Peter cut off the lock of hair of Arabelle, so the two families estrangement between each other outrage. So that is why this poem was intended to Pope's acquaintances and to make everything all right. So Pope desired to write a poem to make a jest of it, to laugh of it together. So it was this view that it is intended for Pope's acquaintances.
So for the restoration of King Charles II. So this time is the society during the restoration. So for those people who live before, those who have nuts in life, so they experience waste in the streets and also the bad conditions, which is one family live in just one room. The space and air were for the rich, but for the poor, they owed for sickness to vice and foolishness. So that time, the high crime is also rising. So sold gin illegally, and the debtors are also in prison. You know what? There are 74% of children under age 5 who had died because they don't have any doctors, police, education, religion, or any charity that may help in their lives. So for people who have life has everything they need in their life. They have the cosmetics, high fashion for men and women. So all men are equal, some more than others. They're also divided between London and country states. They also experience time-centered dancing, dining, theater going, card playing, and also gambling. In the end of 18th century, simplicity and sobriety. And for the men, they also wear wigs. We have here the examples or the list of novels and journalism. First is the broad and comical novels, which is new. Defoe, Robinson Crusoe, values that we associated with the middle class. Addison and Steele journalism, journalist reformers. Henry Fielding, which is Tom Jones, realistic and funny. tell us what life was like during the time and also the understanding human experience. So this list are the novels which people are used to read on that time.
Once again, good evening everyone, sir. Good evening as we continue to our topic for tonight, restoration of 18th century. The age of satire attacks on immortality and bad taste. A man named Oliver Goldsmith in 1728 to 1774 bloomed and he conquered the comedy of manners that satirized the 18th century. Who is overly class conscious? Who is the man bloom about this and conquer comedy of manners? As we continue, the first English novels and journalism. So first, broad and comical novels. There are new comical novels that is really broad. And also, Defoe Robinson, Crusoe values that we associate and with the middle class in this associate the middle class of this century. And another name is Addison and Steele, also the journalists and reformers in this century was being restored through journalism. And another name is Henry Fielding and Tom Jones. The realistic and funny was also restored. And there's also a restoration of tell us what life was like during that time and understand human experience. So in this 18th century, it's also restored and the first English novels and journalism. That's how about the being restored in this century. The first English novels and journalism. So religion and politics, and also in this century. The repression of minority sectors. So religion and politics. Again, the repression of minority sectors. First is religion with religion determined politics. So in this century, religion was determined through politics. That's how they do it. Second is king, head of the church. So as a king, it's also a head of the church that being restored also this 18th century. The Anglican Church was also made by Charles II as the official church of the Anglican in this 18th century restoration. Parliament and king tried to outlaw Puritans and other religions. So the king in this century was tried to outlaw Puritans and other religions. It means like the king won't allow to continue the religions and other politics in this 18th century restoration. So, but at the end, these sectors was being persecuted and never been restored. So, but nowadays, you can see more religions and politics rule our country, government. As we continue.